If summer heat and activity left your lawn with bare patches and thin spots, then get Scott's Turf Builder Grass Seed. Fall's cool air and warm soil make it the best time to grow grass. Use Turf Builder Grass Seed to grow thicker, greener grass, guaranteed. It contains Scott's exclusive Water Smart Plus coating that absorbs 2 times more water than uncoated seeds. Feeds to jumpstart growth and protect seedlings against disease. And Scott's is the official lawn care company of Major League Baseball. Fall's the best time to grow seed and repair your yard. Pick up a bag of Scott's Turf Builder Grass Seed today. This is the Scott's Yard.
It's time for some straight talk. The big wireless companies charge a boatload for their superior network coverage. But guess what? Straight Talk uses the same cell towers but charges a lot less. Who knew? Well, now you do. And I do. So let's do something. It's time to switch to Straight Talk. Unlimited plans start as low as $35 a month on America's largest, most dependable networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. A month equals 30 days. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
Tim Kurkjian in our studio in a half hour, breaking down what was a remarkable day in baseball yesterday. The Steven Strasburg story was unlike anything I can see or have seen in years. And this morning, Golic is really sort of feeling it after his Indians, for the second consecutive year,
had
3 chances
to
put away a series.
I'm fine. Move on.
And are unable to do it. Well, let me read a little bit more on the Twitter here. Couture, I don't even know how you pronounce whatever this thing is, tweets at us, the air is great out here in New York. How is it in Cleveland? ESPN Golic. Where else are we? Jeff tweets, did LeBron curse Cleveland after beating Golden State, 2 series blown and a finals blowout?
Oh, stop.
Where else are we here? Barry tweets, I believe Friday's failure to challenge that hit by pitch actually ignited the young Yankees behind Girardi like nothing else could.
Listen, I think players like Girardi, but if you need any motivation to play harder in the postseason, I'm not buying that. I mean, does it feel good to vindicate your manager? I think yes, because you like him. But I couldn't fathom in the locker room, especially in the postseason, saying, yeah, our manager or our coach did this. Let's go out and try harder now to win it for him. You feel good you won because it vindicated him on this particular situation. But I don't know if I can sit there and say that was the motivation.
Listen, the Yankees won because they're a very good team.
Yeah, they are.
It's remarkable that the New York Yankees, considering their storied history and everything else, can fly under the radar. But to some degree, the Yankees were a little bit under the radar this year.
Yeah, they were a year early.
Because everyone anticipated that they're playing with a bunch of kids and that this is not going to be their year. And because the Dodgers did the things they did early in the year, and then the Indians won the 22 straight games or whatever it was, and the Astros were so good all season long, the Yankees were sort of under the radar. They won because they're good. This was basically an even series. Before it started, I said, I give the Indians a 60-40 shot of winning. And I think that's about what it was.
Yeah.
And so do I think that the Girardi thing galvanized them a little? Yeah. Do I think it's the reason they won? Absolutely not. Do I think they feel great for having done it? That's the part of it I'm talking about and that I like, is I sensed a real genuineness in their celebration yesterday. And even over the course of the last few days of how they wanted to pick up their manager. I think by and large they like him.
I think
they wanted that for him.
I think that was an excellent byproduct of it. Hey, let's move on in this and in the process what this can do for a guy we really like in Joe Girardi.
I have some audio from Girardi afterwards last night talking about what he had said to his team.
I told him I screwed up. Plain and simple. I mean, there's no running around it, and I thought, I mean, I make mistakes. I'm human. I wish I would have had another 15 seconds, but I didn't, and I'll learn from it. And now I might be throwing challenges out every play.
Yeah. Listen.
See, now he can joke about it. I mean, that's so great.
Yeah.
This is something that would have sort of haunted him.
But I'm telling you, man, in a team sport, when you know it is solely on you, that particular mistake, again, as we said, there was baseball played after it. So it's not like that was the last thing that happened on the diamond and the game was over. There was baseball played after, but when it was solely on you, your decision to do that, and you didn't, and it was a mistake that turned out to cost your team. It's a devastating feeling, And I mean, that is a big thing. There could be smaller things, but man, when it's on you, and as I've always said, you don't want to be the guy. You don't want to be the guy that lets down the team, and when it's you, it's a horrible, horrible feeling.
Yeah, and we mentioned this earlier, but after that pitch was thrown, which did not result in him challenging it and may have otherwise been the final out of the inning, the Yankees still had a 5-run lead at that moment. At that moment in the game, the Yankees were winning 8-3. So while the manager should have challenged that play, and it was a mistake, his team still has a 5-run lead. They're still supposed to win that game.
And even after the grand slam, they have a run lead. They're still leading the game. So, I mean, there is that part of it, but it certainly weighed heavy on Girardi.
On the other side, the Strasburg situation of yesterday, I'll mention it again as I know a lot of the audience is just sort of waking up and joining us here. I actually had someone walk up to me on the golf course yesterday and say, hey, do you think you guys are the reason that Strasburg is pitching today? Don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous. Do I think that it is possible that he felt some pressure? Yes. But I would be 1,000% confident in saying that pressure would be internal. If he felt as though his teammates felt he was letting them down, his organization felt he was letting them down, the manager felt he was letting them down, I can see that getting to him. I cannot see for 1 second him thinking, boy, Greeny really had a lot to say about this morning. I think I better get out there and throw.
Absolutely.
Let's not be ridiculous.
Completely agree. This is a team thing. He tells Dusty how he feels after going for a jog, and, he's probably just telling the truth, of how he feels. And then I guess maybe when you start to hear it or hear the reasons, maybe you start thinking, maybe you're in the clubhouse, if a teammate is like, oh, wow, I didn't think you'd go out there and give it a go. I mean, it can weigh on you. And I would have been stunned if you just don't go out there, even no matter how sick you are, to give it a go. And as he said, now, again, will we ever know the complete truth of everything, saying they switched some medication? It could be Occam's razor, right?
Yeah.
It could be. Yeah, you know what? I felt awful. Didn't think I could pitch. We switched up the meds. They worked better. I felt better, so I pitched. And, oh, by the way, I struck out 12, which let me throw shade at the media afterward.
Yeah.
When that chance came.
Occam's razor, again, the principle that in any circumstance with a variety of different explanations, the simplest one is usually the truth. And it should be pointed out again, Mike, the Nationals actually reached out to us yesterday while we were having this conversation. We got an email from them, from their media relations department.
Really?
Yes. It was sent to people at ESPN, people who work with us, to Elizabeth Fierman, saying, can you please pass this message along to Mike and Mike? And the message was, we did not have to move hotels because of mold. We had to move hotels because the hotel we were in did not have enough rooms available to accommodate our large traveling party for the extra night. Dusty was referring to seasonal mold allergies, which are common this time of year, not mold in our hotel. That was the clarification.
They actually typed that out and sent it, huh?
Yes, we got that note yesterday, 9:24 a.m.
Seasonal mold.
Seasonal mold. It was the strangest story that I have seen in a long time. And so for him to go out, and again, for those of you who, the game started at a time of day when I'm sure a lot of people were at work. You might not have seen it.
Right.
I thought they were going to get him early. He was laboring in those first 2 innings. He threw 37 pitches in the first couple of innings. They had runners on. The wind was blowing in like a million miles an hour. They were hitting the ball hard. I did not think Strasburg had it. And then he just turned it on. And that off-speed stuff that he throws is just deadly.
Yeah.
And he winds up with 12 strikeouts, and now you got a winner-take-all game tonight. So back-to-back nights, we get winner-take-all game 5s. If you're a baseball fan, you can't ask for more.
No, you can't. And for Strasburg, you're right. Listen, anytime coming off a sickness, you kind of feel like garbage. And then you catch that second win, even sometimes before a game when you all of a sudden it's such a big game and you feel winded and tired. You're like, oh, my God, how am I going to play? And then you catch that second win and you feel good. And I'd say that happened with him pretty well because he was absolutely dealing.
All right. Again, Tim Kurkjian will be live here in a couple of minutes, and we'll go through all the baseball with him. Where Mike and Mike were presented by Progressive Insurance. Pick from a range of coverage options with the Name Your Price tool to find a price that works for you. The NFL weekend kicks off tonight, again, as we mentioned, with Philadelphia at Carolina. That's a really good game with two quarterbacks who are playing great. And obviously Cam Newton is a former league MVP. He's playing as well right now through 5 games as he has at basically any point of his career. How about the Philadelphia counterpart? What are you seeing in Carson Wentz in his second year of maturation? Because he has been spectacular.
You're thinking of more comfort. I mean, which is exactly what you would think would be a difference from year 1 to year 2 when you look for that big improvement. It's just command and comfort. Now, the first year I always say, or rookies that are starting, don't look so much at the numbers, look at how they're conducting their business. Well, at some point, obviously, you now start looking at the numbers, and now you start looking at things he's doing, and how he's going about his business and what he's accomplishing. So that's what I say. I say more command of an offense, a better running game has certainly helped. Without question, it's going to help him. It's going to help him on his play action. And that's when you see a stat like he's already thrown twice as many touchdowns on third down this season, 6, as he did all last year with 3. So already doubled that. So that's what I see, a guy who I saw when I watched tape on him. I always thought he had good command in the pocket, could run an offense. They had more of a running offense that he had in college, but here they're running the ball, as I said, 138 yards a game. I think that is one of the biggest differences, and it enables your quarterback to be able to settle in and know you have that. You have that weapon there that can help you play action-wise and give you that extra beat or two in the pocket if you need it.
Now, for a kid who got rushed into playing his first game as a rookie based upon strange circumstances. I mean, he went from being the third-string quarterback to being the first-string quarterback, 8 or 9 days before the season started last year when they traded away Sam Bradford, which I thought was the most curious thing I could ever imagine when you had given up what you'd given up to get him. But now you look at it and you say they are developing him great. They went out and they got him a battering ram of a running back, which helps enormously. They got him a big, tall, strong weapon on the outside in Jeffrey to go alongside Aguilar. They've got the good offensive line. They've got the really good Andy Reid protege, in Peterson. They're running that offense. I mean, everything is kind of coming together very nicely, it feels like, in Philadelphia.
I think one thing you always look at for a team that's a good team and how they go is the relationship of the quarterback and tight end. And Zach Ertz is emerging, or you want to say has emerged as one of the top ones. And you look at that, how well they play together. When we were out in Philly at the draft, they did a couple of events with those guys, and they're as thick as thieves, good friends and such. And it shows on the field, and it's not only it's a great primary target at times, but certainly a great security blanket at times. But he's a guy that can be devastating in Ertz after he catches the ball.
And by the way, I mentioned that the Thursday night games, the home team has a big advantage, and generally that has been the case. This year it has not. The road team has won 4 of the 5 Thursday night games this year. Now, let's throw out the first one, because that's Kansas City at New England. That's not your traditional Thursday night game, because it's not a short week, first game of the season.
Right.
But even so, the road teams have won 3 of the first 4 Thursday night games. So this year, at least, it has not been the advantage. Again, I like the Eagles tonight, and you like the Eagles tonight, too.
I do like the Eagles tonight as well.
All right, so we'll see what winds up happening there as the weekend kicks off tonight. Strange circumstance going on with the Giants right now. There is no team that has gotten off to a worse start than the Giants in every way that you can get off to a bad start. First and foremost, they're 0-5. Second of all, they lose their best player in Odell Beckham for the season. Third of all, that's part of 4 wide receiver injuries that they suffer, 3 of them of the season-ending variety, so they're just decimated there. And now, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, DRC, what is going on? Somehow all this is happening, and I don't understand a word of it. He was on the field. He got frustrated. He left. He came back. They're mad. They were going to discipline him. He came in. They sent him home. Now he's punished for going home. What is going on?
Well, again, for the timeline, last Friday, this is another thing I'd like to check out. The Giants don't really practice on Friday. They do recovery day.
Right.
Which is pretty cool.
Right.
I'd like to, you can come in and choose the way you want to recover. Well, he doesn't do that. Sunday during the game, he gets disenchanted with what's going on in the game and leaves the sideline. I mean,
that doesn't happen much.
No, it doesn't.
Very rarely do players leave a team based on disenchantment during a game.
The sideline of a game is ridiculous. And then he comes to practice Wednesday and basically, has the conversation, clears out his locker, and he leaves. So they suspend him. From what I understand, I believe he told Josina Anderson that he's going to come back today, but he's not going to play. He's going to practice, won't play, going to be suspended. I don't know what's going on, but in a time of you got to start wondering what's going on, with the Giants. This is what happens, though, when you lose, man. I mean, things really start to stack up against you, and it also tests character. Character is easy to judge when you're winning and everything's fine. But when things are bad, start falling apart, who's the glue? Who's hanging in there? If things aren't going your way, finds a way to work through it. And here you got a guy that basically was so mad he cut bait. You know, you're hearing about the defensive coordinator after games having to run after other players who are mad. I mean, are you serious? I mean, everybody gets mad. Listen, I've had shouting matches with my coaches on numerous occasions, but you stick together. I mean, you play together, you know, and you don't walk out. You don't walk out on your teammates, which is what happened here, so he'll be disciplined for it. But basically, you see little cracks in the armor, you know, when you're a bad team and things aren't going well. Now it comes down to individual character at times on how do you deal with it.
Yeah, disenchantment is just, you use the right word. I noted that also as I was reading the story. That was the word that was used. I don't know if he used the word.
No, I don't sure.
But he walked off the field because he was disenchanted with what was going on in the game. In the middle of the game, he walked off the field and went into the locker room. He wasn't hurt. He just was that doesn't happen much. We've seen coaches send players off the field a few times. Not even that happens very rarely. Very famously, Mike Singletary did it with Vernon Davis that one time.
Right, sent him off the field, yeah.
That was the legendary can't win with him, you know, that whole thing. But this is the kind of thing that almost never happens, and you're right. When it starts falling apart, then you really see what happens. And it's one of the ways maybe that you judge, fairly or unfairly, how much control over the situation the coach has.
Yeah.
And that could reflect very badly on a coach whose job I think could very much be in the question at the end of the season.
Coach's job and the respect for a coach by players. Again, so Friday, Sunday, Tuesday, Cromartie had a conversation with McAdoo in the facility, and then Wednesday he came in, cleared out his locker, and left. As we said, supposedly he's coming back today. I'm sure we'll find out very easily. You know, and other teammates had said, we didn't even realize it till you look around, and at times it's true. All of a sudden someone's not there, and you're like, wait, why is this guy not here? Yeah, it's ugly right now. And you know what? I don't think it's getting much better. I don't think it's, and anytime soon, I don't think they're going 0-16, but they're certainly not going to be able to do any of the things they thought they might be able to do. Now you compound it with all the injuries, all the wide receivers they brought in, and T.O. wasn't one of them, by the way. They brought in like 4 or 5 receivers to look at, so that's not going to happen. So yeah, you're just, you know what happens in this case, I'll tell you, is you want the team aspect, but a lot of guys are playing for their futures. A lot of guys at different places in their contract, different places on how they're playing. This offensive line has been much maligned, so you're starting to play, how am I playing? How am I going to present myself and play for my future in the National Football League?
To me, the most interesting part of it, because their season is hopelessly over here, is do they splinter into a place that is so abysmal that it reflects badly and they wind up changing the coach after this season? It's only his second year as the coach, and the Giants have generally been a pretty stable organization. We'll see. And then the second piece of it is, if they really do finish right near the bottom of the league, which right now seems like a real possibility, do they take a quarterback? I know they took Davis Webb this past year, but there are a bunch of quote-unquote franchise quarterback prospects that we expect to be in this year's draft. Now, we don't know that at this point for sure that Darnold is going to be in the draft, but certainly all we've heard about all year long has been Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen and Josh Allen, and on it goes. Do the Giants, if they wind up with the first or second or third pick, do they wind up taking that guy and starting to turn the page away from the Eli Manning era? Because you and I both know, Mike, that even if Eli remains the quarterback for another year or two beyond that, it's just a question of time.
Of when, right.
Well, it's almost better at that point for everyone if they do it the way the Colts did it, which is we've drafted Andrew Luck. Peyton, we love you. Thanks for everything you've done here, but we're turning the page.
Right.
If you draft Sam, let's just say for the sake of this discussion, they get the number 1 pick and they take Sam Darnold, then, do you keep Eli there for another year or two, knowing that he's just sort of keeping the seat warm because you might win it all in 1 year or two, or do you actually find a way to turn the page?
Here's one of the biggest differences you said. What was it? It was universal on Andrew Luck. That's a big question as well, and I said that when you first brought this up. It's got to be about the grade you have on the quarterback, too. You can't do it if you got a quarterback you're grading like in the low 90s or high 80s. There may be a number of quarterbacks coming out, but that doesn't mean they're all high-graded quarterbacks that you say, yeah, this is the guy. It's a thought process we had, but is it going to stay that way? So a lot depends on that. Also, another quick general thing. Am I missing a team? But the teams that clearly went – and make no, and I think you would agree, clearly went the way of the quarterback whisperer and how they're doing. Ben McAdoo in with the Giants.
Terrible.
Adam Gase in Miami.
Their offense is incredibly bad.
And Dirk Cutter in Tampa Bay. So we're still kind of
Their
seeing.
season hasn't been particularly good.
No, it hasn't. Am I missing it? Was there? I feel like I was missing another one, but I know those three for sure. Where it was, it's a different thing each year in any sport, baseball, football, basketball, on why a coach is hired, and that's kind of what we saw a run on, right? That time was, these guys, boy, look, when McAdoo first became the O coordinator, look how much better Eli was doing, and Dirk Cutter was Lovie Smith was thrown overboard for Dirk Cutter. And then Adam Gase, look what he did in Chicago, even though a bad team around him, but the quarterback play. Let's make him a head coach.
Are we going to cut Adam Gase any slack because he lost his quarterback?
He loses his quarterback.
He's playing with Jay Cutler out of retirement. But Field Yates tweeted this earlier this week. The Dolphins' offense this season, they're last in the league in total yards per game. They're last in the league in yards per play. They're last in the league in total touchdowns scored, and they're worst in the league in third down.
I'm surprised at that. I really thought they were going to be better.
By a lot of standards of measure, they are the worst offense in the league. So that's been a disaster. And then, of course, they had the situation with the offensive line coach, which was
was what it was, huh?
Yeah, I was trying to think of exactly how I would try and sum that up in one sentence, and I'm really not sure how to do it. That was sort of unprecedented, wasn't it? One way or another,
like going to an offensive line meeting. Coach, do they clean these desks in here? They'll have white powder on them. Hey-o! Well, is it too soon? Too soon?
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. It has been an extraordinary couple of days in baseball. The Strasburg stuff from yesterday was fascinating. The Yankees coming all the way back to beat the Indians last night. Game 5 tonight between the Cubs and Nationals. All those and more on the table as Tim Kurkjian joins us in our studio.
We look forward to that. And the only thing Tim has to understand is we will not be talking about the Yankees and Indians game at all.
Golic is refusing. Golic is from Cleveland. He's down. He's devastated. He's crushed. So, Timmy, prepare a lot of Strasburg stuff for us.
Hey, girl, have you done something new with your scales? Using new moisturizer? Nice. It really brings out the hazel in your eyes. Oh, hold on. Are you using whitening strips, too? Your fangs look good, girl. Really good.
A really charming snake charmer? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
Wait, what? Have you been doing Pilates, too?
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Tim Kurkjian is the man to talk about it. Good morning, Timmy.
How are you guys?
Not good, Tim. Not good.
Bitter man.
He's down.
I don't blame him. Sorry.
It's the second consecutive year in which this team has had 3 opportunities to close out a postseason series and been unable to do it. The 3-1 lead in the World Series last year, and now this. So let's start with them before we talk about the teams that go on. What of the Indians now? They remain, obviously, a team with a really good young nucleus and a terrific manager, but this has got to be a brutal day to be cleaning out their lockers.
This is a terrible day, and this is historic, Greeny. No team has ever lost a 2-game lead in a playoff series 2 years in a row. That 3-1, 2-0, and losing both, that's never happened in postseason history, and it happened to the poor Indians. And it happened because, in part, Corey Kluber simply wasn't himself. He gave up 9 runs in 6 1/3 innings. He gave up 9 runs in his last 9 starts of the 2017 regular season. And then their 2 best hitters, Francisco Lindor and Jose Ramirez, at least their 2 best players this year, went 4 for 37 and struck out 13 times. You're not going to win when arguably your 3 most important players just didn't get it done in a 5-game series.
So is the stigma stuck on them now, because you'd imagine they're going to be a really good team again next year, that everybody will expect the playoffs and that they have to get past the sticking point of not being able to close out? Is that like that's where it is right now? It's not even the regular season anymore for them?
Yeah, I think that's where they are right now. But the good thing is they're going to be really good again next year, as you said. And they're going to be good for several years to come. And as long as Tito Francona is there with the ownership and management situation they have, they're going to be fine for several more years. And that's the good news. But the bad news is they haven't won since 1948. And I think it got maybe in their heads a little bit after they won 22 in a row that we have to win the World Series now. And I think when they got behind in Game 4 and they started saying, wow, we might not win this series, I think it might have affected them.
And then Sabathia went out and pitched really well yesterday, and the Yankee bullpen comes in. Gregorius goes deep twice, and the Yankees go on. So what of these Yankees? I sensed a real genuineness as they were talking about in the post-game celebration yesterday, doing it for Joe Girardi after all of the heat that he took. And again, I think most of it justifiably so for the mistake that he made in the game on Friday night. but they wanted to go out there and, for lack of a better word, get him off the hook. And that I think was special. I don't know if it galvanized them or not, but I think that was really genuine last night.
Right. And I think Joe Girardi's being way too hard on himself. Like, I blew game 2. I certainly don't look at it that way. He didn't have a good managing game. I'll give you that. But I think it is real that they're trying to win for him. But they win because they play the way you win today in the big leagues. They hit a bunch of homers. Their shortstop hit 2 last night off the best pitcher in the American League. And when push comes to shove, they just bring a power guy out of the bullpen and they just strike you out. They have the formula to win the World Series. That's why, even though I thought Cleveland would win this series, to say the Yankees can't beat the Indians, they beat them with the exact formula they needed. When in doubt, hit a ball out of the ballpark and then bring someone out of the bullpen throwing 96 miles an hour.
16 strikeouts for them, 15 for Cleveland, 31. That's a record. We know Aaron Judge, 16 strikeouts in this postseason series. That's a record. It's been ugly. So a quick thumbnail going forward against Houston. Houston beat them 5 out of the 7 times. Houston hit more home runs in those 7 games, 11-7. Obviously had the more wins, had more hits as well. So what's a quick thumbnail on that?
Well, Houston's a better team, and Houston is the best offensive team in Major League Baseball, and their lineup is absolutely relentless, and I'm not sure how the Yankees are going to deal with that, even with that power bullpen. But the reason the Yankees won ultimately over the Indians is their starting pitching was as good, if not better, than Cleveland's, and nobody saw that coming. So you have to give them a fighter's chance here, but they're going to have to do a little bit more offensively with Aaron Judge. Fellas, he had 4 strikeout games in this playoff series. No one has had 4 strikeout games in the history of the postseason in their careers, and he did it in a 5-game series. And we know this, and this is pointless, but Joe DiMaggio struck out 13 times during the 41 season. Aaron Judge struck out 16 times in 5 games.
It's one of my favorite stats.
It's unreal.
Not only of the day, but ever. DiMaggio had 622 plate appearances that year. Judge had 24 in this series, and he struck out 3 more times than DiMaggio did the entire year.
Right.
But that's the game
and
now,
DiMaggio
right?
hit 30 homers that year, too. But you're right, Greeny. That's how the game is played. You can actually live with all those strikeouts as long as somebody hits a home run during it. It's easier to hit a home run off of Max Scherzer, let's say, than it is to get 3 straight hits off of Max Scherzer, and that's how the game is played today.
So, with that thought in mind, we'll figure out what they're going to do as they go forward. Let's go to the National League game because I'm going to lose you here in a little bit because Timmy is all over SportsCenter all day long. What do you think happened with Strasburg yesterday? I mean, that we were here yesterday morning. We were talking about it. What a crazy set of circumstances. What from the people you've spoken to, what do you think happened there?
Okay, I think he was legitimately sick, but it wasn't presented that way by the Nationals. He said he was a little bit under the weather. Right. That suggests he's got a cold, all right? If he's got the flu and he's throwing up, you got to tell everybody we want him to pitch game 4, but if he's throwing up and he's got the flu, if he's feeling better tomorrow, we're going to try to pitch him, and that's precisely what happened. So he wakes up in the morning after all the IVs, he feels better, he goes to the manager and says, I want the ball. Well, I think he took the ball in part mostly because he felt better, but also because he got clobbered from coast to coast from people, including me, saying, how can you not take the ball here? And the reason it was so important is we saw it last night. Great pitchers take the ball. He is a great pitcher. That's why it was so important that he pitched, because what we saw last night was unhittable stuff, dominant stuff. They won because he was great, and that's why he had to pitch that game. No one would say this about a borderline pitcher, a guy with a 5 ERA. They'd say, well, someone else will pitch the game. This is Steven Strasburg. He's really, really good.
Yeah, I'd like to, and I doubt we ever will, know that aha moment, that moment where he was like, I got to pitch. I want to pitch. Was it the clubhouse? Was it the teammates? You think, once you see what's going on and you hear it out there, you're like, wait a minute, I need to be out there for my team. There had to be a moment for him. Either way, he got the last laugh with 12 strikeouts. So, game 5 tonight, How do they have a name to start? We think it's going to be Gio Gonzalez?
Well, we're guessing. I'm going to guess it's going to be Gio Gonzalez. He's got Tanner Roark. He's a very good Major League pitcher sitting right there. He could pitch in relief a little better than Gio could. That would be my guess. And Kyle Hendricks, of course, goes for the Cubs. He's been their best pitcher the last month and a half. He was absolutely brilliant in Game 1. So that puts the Cubs in a good spot. But to repeat, anybody who thinks they actually know what's going to happen tonight in Washington, have you been watching the last week? Have you been watching the last 120 years of baseball? We have no idea what's going to happen, which is, of course, what makes it so great.
The only thing we know for sure is that you'll be able to hear every pitch of it tonight on ESPN Radio. Game 5, Cubs-Nats in the NLDS, and the winner goes on to L.A. And we were just saying, if the Nationals were to win tonight, Game 1 Saturday of the National League Championship Series would be Clayton Kershaw against Max Scherzer, which would be quite a thing. The other big baseball story yesterday, the Red Sox fired their manager, and from what I was reading, it sounded like Dombrowski was somewhat cryptic about the way he explained it, saying
it didn't sound cryptic to me. It said it had nothing to do with what they were going to do this year, no matter how far they went, that basically he was going to be gone.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Correct, which made it sound to me like he was basically saying something happened, but he wasn't telling us what it was. That's what I mean by cryptic.
Gotcha.
What were the circumstances of that?
Well, to me, it was just a case of he's the manager of the Red Sox, and that's a really hard job. And the shelf life for the manager of the Red Sox is a really short one compared to managers of other teams. Go ask Grady Little. Go ask Tito Francona. Tito Francona should have never been fired by the Red Sox. And the way they handled it was terrible. And yet, even he would acknowledge later, maybe it was time to go, because managing there is so difficult to do, and it was difficult for John Farrell, and it's a very PR-conscious team there. And when they look around, ownership looks around and says, the fans here don't like the manager very much. That sometimes can be a reason to get rid of the manager. It's a terrible reason, but that's the reality of Boston. The fans there are so sophisticated, they demand so much. And when you're not following through with it, they're going to clamor, we need somebody else. And they listen to their fans on this.
So 2 managerial questions. First on the Red Sox, who are the candidates? We've heard some names out there. Where do you think this may go?
I think Brad Ausmus might be the leader. He and Dave Dombrowski have a relationship, of course. He's a New England guy. He's really smart, and I think he'd be a great manager for the Red Sox. Alex Cora would be a great manager for the Red Sox, although Dave Dombrowski says, I'd like someone with a managerial experience on the major league level. Ron Gardenhire fits that, did a great job for the Twins, bench coach in Arizona. Those are just 3 names, and maybe they go get Jason Varitek and try something new. I don't think that's going to happen, but those are just some of the names that we've heard already.
So then as far as the Yankees and Girardi, all the talk we did last week, that was, are the Yankees want him back? Does Joe want to be back? Where is all that now? Has any of that changed now?
I think it has to have changed with the way they played in this series. And yet other people have told me, well, they have to win the World Series for Joe Girardi to be back. I'm not sold on completely on any of this. If you ask me now, if they get knocked out in the next round, note my hesitation here. I don't think he's coming back. And yet, we still have to see how this plays out. Now they're playing for the manager. We're winning for Joe. That's going to factor in this one way or another.
The emotional swings in this thing have been remarkable over the course of weeks. It's hard to believe it's only been a week. I mean, the plays have only been on a week. It feels like it's been going on a very long time, but it's all been a lot of fun, and Tim Kurkjian will be all over TV all day long today, breaking it all down. And again, Game 5 tonight in Washington. Timmy, thank you, as always.
Thanks guys. Sorry.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Golic is down. Oklahoma, it should be reminded, or you should be reminded, each of the 3 national champions in the current college football playoff format lost a game at home during the season.
Listen.
So they're not done.
I am so looking forward to this game from the 2 sides, and Herbie really touched on it there. Oklahoma is going to be mad as can be coming off that loss. Their margin for error now is 0, and that doesn't even guarantee them getting in, even if they run the table the rest of the way. But it's certainly if they drop another one, they're done. And then for Texas, they're not going to the playoffs this year. They're trying to get better each and every game with their new coach. So what a great test for them. So a mad team coming in knowing their margin for errors is gone, and a team and a rivalry that all these players know about, and that Texas going in, you don't think Tom Herman is telling them, not only can we get better and look better, we can put the dagger in the heart of Oklahoma this weekend. We can end their dreams of going into the playoffs this weekend.
No ranked games the whole weekend, which at this late in the season is remarkable. Mike and Mike, let's do some Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. We'll get back to the football and the baseball in particular off the top of the hour. But yesterday, Mike, you weren't here to give a thought on the American team failing to qualify for the World Cup. I did a poll. You can read my poll one of two different ways, because I put up three options. I said I put a Twitter poll up that said, what is your reaction to USA Soccer failing to qualify for the World Cup? I had three options: highly upset, mildly upset, don't care that much. The one that got the most was don't care that much, with 41%. Mm-hmm. But, as Ray said to me afterwards, that means the majority of people did care, because it was 36% for highly upset and 23% for mildly upset.
Right.
So there were actually more people that cared than didn't care at all. Having said that, I wanted to just give you the poll results. Mike, what are your thoughts?
I want to get past whether you like soccer or not, and how popular it is in this country. Let's forget all that. This is the most popular sport in the world, and we certainly would like to be up there in it. We know our women have certainly been as being the top women's team in the world the times that they have. But the men, we've seen the ups and downs. So listen, I am by no means a soccer expert or analyst. I heard yesterday, our analysts going off.
Taylor Twellman,
livid about how arrogant we were acting, even though we're not in this thing with Bruce Arena and such. And just, so they're obviously better equipped to tell us where we are. Is there a reset button that needs to be hit? Are we just close and just hit a bad stretch right there, or just some bad luck going on right there? How close are we? I don't know a lot of that. I honestly don't. But I can see why all the analysts and former players and guys that are talking about the game now are on high alert. First time since '86. That is an embarrassment. So there is nothing like call to action from embarrassment. There's one thing to lose, but there's another thing to be embarrassed by the situation to where now you are left out. The World Cup goes on and you are at home for the first time in 30-some years. So as far as the game itself, I don't know. I don't know where we are. We keep talking about the development in the United States as opposed to development in other countries, on how much younger the kids are that are developed there, and where the better athletes in this country may gear toward when they start going to one sport, that it may not be soccer. So there are many people that know that answer more to me. But there's nothing like spurring on some sort of change when something this bad happens. There's losing, but we're still in. We're just trying to get better to, oh, my God, we're not at the World Cup for the first time in 30-some years. Something's got to happen.
And I think that the gut punch to the growth of the sport in this country also was palpable, and we talked about that a bit yesterday, and we'll feel it, I think, when this thing starts over the summer. Straight Talk Wireless nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Plenty of baseball coming up next. Shefty in the next hour, too. Stay there. Busy with Mike and Mike on a Thursday.